what does he identify but baby laxative?
Monkey, 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 monkey.
Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And I find myself in very happy spirits because I have been recently revisiting the world of this great show, which is Twin Peaks, for purposes of these video discussions, and also for the reason of wanting to revisit this show because I love this show so much. And so today I'd like to talk to you about episode 19. And as you know, we have been going through this series episode by episode with these video discussions. And so now that brings us to episode 19. So what I'd like to do, as I've done with the previous videos, is to talk about the events leading up to and including episode 19, not necessarily focusing a lot on anything that follows episode 19. But of course, we can always maybe derive or find or identify possible clues or hints or themes that may or may not resonate going forward beyond this particular episode 19. So with that being said, let's focus primarily on episode 19 and the events leading up to that. And also, I don't hold myself out to be in any way an expert when it comes to Twin Peaks. So I apologize in advance for all the mistakes that I will make, and also for I apologize for the mistakes that I have made before, but I will do my best to remedy those and to fix those where I can. And also, once again, though I am not an expert, I once again want to say that I am a big fan of Twin Peaks, and that's the approach and perspective I want to adopt as I have these discussions. And so with that being said, my dear friends, let us go on with this discussion of episode 19. And we have the continuing saga of Ben Horne, and he seems to be slipping into some very, interesting state of situations, shall we say. So on the one hand, he seems to have a certain, cognizance of the current events with regard to Hank, and this is the intersection between him and Bobby at the very start. If you recall, Hank had confronted Ben Horne in a previous episode, and so Ben Horne is essentially left alone. But at the same time, Bobby is come, and although Bobby had attempted to try to essentially blackmail Ben Horne, didn't quite work out. But it seems like there could be a potential partnership or gainful employment, or whatever the case may be, because Bobby seems to be working on a job for Ben Horne at Ben Horne's request. Ben Horne would like him to essentially follow and take some pictures of Hank and what it is he does. And so this becomes part of the sort of plot essentials of this episode, because a little bit later we will see the fruits of Bobby's labor. In other words, we understand that he took some pictures that were indeed compromising of Hank, because they also showed Hank and Jean Renault and Ernie and also King. And so this becomes a very key plot point, because then Audrey, who catches wind of this in a very clever way, she is able to then take these photos and bring them to Cooper, because Cooper is, as we know, still under threat from the FBI investigation about his goings on, and he understands too early on and during this episode that he might face imprisonment if he is not able to defend himself successfully with regard to this investigation. Well, it seems like he is able to he's able possibly to find some kind of defense because of these pictures, because they show indeed the cross-section of a conspiracy involving the mounted police, King and Jean Renault, and then Hank and Ernie. And so this has the element of the drugs, which then brings in Denise Bryson, and Denise Bryson then takes these pictures after meeting Audrey, and there's a very interesting exchange between Denise Bryson and Cooper while Audrey's in the room. And so Denise Bryson expresses that having comments that suggest that Denise is attracted to Audrey or finds Audrey attractive. And so this creates a very interesting conversation between Dale Cooper and Denise Bryson. But in any event, yes, these pictures are then taken to Ernie at the Double R by Denise Bryson, who then brings Ernie in, and Ernie has a confession while expressing love for his wife. So therein lies, I think, the plot in terms of the defense for Cooper and the unraveling of the conspiracy involving the drug plot with regard to the underbelly of Twin Peaks. So this is a very important key aspect that we have been concerned about, because yes, Cooper is in danger in terms of his position at the FBI. And so in the meantime, as we know too from this episode, while he has been waiting, he has been looking for real estate. And so with the help of the agent Irene Littlefoot, we understand that he is looking at possible places, houses and other real estate places in Twin Peaks. And so that brings him to the place which is Dead Dog Farm. And that's a very interesting name for a very interesting place. And it's very interesting for a number of reasons, right? Because, well, first of all, we have the wonderful way in which he chooses which file to look at, because of the coin flip and the bounce off the plate with the donuts, and it lands on the folder. And then a little bit later, Irene Littlefoot takes Cooper to visit the actual place, and we see that he is still a detective, and he sees that he deduces that there must have been a meeting there, maybe a few hours or just prior to their visit. And he sees the drain, and he intuits that maybe the people who were meeting there didn't realize that there was still no running water, and so there was some residue of whatever was dumped in the sink, assuming that people who were meeting there dumped something in the sink. Dale Cooper reaches down and examines a little bit of what looks like white powder in the sink. He takes a little taste to test what it is, and lo and behold, what does he identify but baby laxative? So this is very interesting. And a little bit later around the table, and there's some residue of white powder, the identification which he says is cocaine. And so here we have some kind of meeting involving cocaine and baby laxative. And so we can assume that this has something to do with those figures, perhaps Hank, Ernie, King, and John Renault. Again, those figures that we saw in those compromising pictures that a little bit later Ben Horn, who is by which time in his Civil War mode, in terms of his model figures and Gettysburg and the Civil War and his fashion. He seems to be in this mode of the Civil War while still entertaining Bobby and while receiving the pictures, which he's very pleased about. So it all seems to be unraveling while Cooper is still a detective while off duty, in a manner of speaking, because he's suspended. Baby laxative, this idea of laxative and the drugs, this might be something that we either might have hinted at, or we might have seen hints at in prior episodes, or we might see references to laxative in subsequent aspects of the world of Twin Peaks. But let's keep that in mind. It's a very interesting image. And it's also a reminder of the drug connection that we have seen in the world of Twin Peaks since the very beginning. But that is a plot element that's still very alive and well. And good for Audrey, too, because Audrey was able to take the photos and then bring them to Cooper directly. So Cooper acknowledges that, indeed, Audrey saved his life because she was able to find and give these pictures over, which will then serve, we assume, as kind of evidence for his defense. So good for Audrey. She is showing herself to be very reliable. And indeed, too, that interaction with Bobby, she is showing a lot of business savvy sense and a very sharp intelligence. And she seems to be, in a sense, growing up in a way. And she's becoming very much a mature adult who is able to handle situations, even where perhaps Ben Horn might be seemingly losing his grip on reality. We get the impression that Audrey seems to be gaining in a type of command and control and authority presence. We'll see if this trajectory continues going forward, but we definitely see this in her interaction with Bobby. She's always been somewhat of maybe a character, and I don't mean this in a negative way. She's been a character ever since the beginning that has shown a sense of being able to manipulate people. But we see here that maybe this way of manipulation is, well, maybe that's not the right way of wording it now. Maybe she's able to take command of the situation, know exactly what she needs to do, and she's also able to read people. But it's always lovely to see that that type of air of command and authority seems to be replaced by a sense of a type of charm and awe when she's with Dale Cooper, and that lovely sense of attraction that she still feels, we assume, towards this man, the hero of the series, in a manner of speaking. So I really like that concept, or that development of Audrey in terms of the character. I've always been a fan of Audrey Horne, but here this trajectory for character, I think, is really interesting. So, and again, it's turning into a very interesting character study, especially when we juxtapose her character with that of Ben Horne, and indeed too of Bobby as well. And the cross section and the intersection of their character arcs, very interesting indeed. And we also have the plot element of Nadine in high school and her tryout with the wrestling team, wrestling with Mike, and she ends up being quite a naturally gifted wrestler indeed. So very exciting indeed for the wrestling team. Maybe not so exciting for Mike, who seems to be kind of concerned about Nadine's interest in Mike and the like, even going so far as to consult with Don about it. But yes, Nadine, the saga of Nadine continues in high school, because she still, of course, thinks that she's 18 or still a high school student because of the events that unfolded somewhat earlier in an earlier episode, episode 7 and episode 8. But speaking of Nadine, we also have the continuing saga of Ed and Norma. This is a really lovely scene with Ed at the diner, sitting at the counter on the right-hand side, and Norma talking to him. He's eating pie, and he's speaking about life, and he's speaking about the passage of time, and before one knows it, all those life plans, they don't mean anything. He expresses almost a sense of unhappiness and disappointment, and he's very sincere here. And this is, I think, another indication of the reunion between Norma and Ed. We see Norma reaching over on the counter and reaching and grabbing his hand. And this is a real, I think, honest connection and reunion, because as we know from earlier on, they had sort of split up because of the return of Hank and because of Ed's seemingly reluctance to separate from Nadine. But then all the events of the mill fire and Cooper shooting and the like, all that stuff happened, and including the attempted suicide by Nadine with the pills. And then when she came to, she thought she was 18 years old, and so that, of course, preoccupied Ed's time and attention. But there was always that hint of maybe Norma and Ed could somehow make a connection again. We see them make connections. We see them, for instance, at after the funeral, we assume, of Leland Palmer, when they're in the room, the potluck, although Hank gives them a look and she goes over to Hank afterwards, and some moments earlier, of course. But here we have a real heart-to-heart between them. And it feels like a connection is being reforged. Also, keep in mind, too, as I mentioned, he's sitting on the right-hand side of the screen, that counter. It seems like this might be a very significant situation, physical situation where he's located. Let's keep this in mind. Maybe there might be scenes in the future where he's sitting in a similar place, thinking about his life and his possible future or relationship with Norma, if it indeed is possible. But in any event, let's keep that in mind. Also, this scene is capped by a little bit of, in the distance, someone who seems to be noticing this or observing this, which you assume is Hank with the domino. Although this time it's not 3-3, but it's 3-4 from my vantage point on one side of the domino. The other side seems to be blank, but in any event, yes, Hank seems to be the owner of a lot of these dominoes. But that's okay, because I assume he must have a set of dominoes or something like that, or maybe at least more than one. But anyway, he seems to like dominoes. Now, speaking of Ed Hurley, of course, we have the connection with Ed and James, and what is going on with James. Well, he's outside of Twin Peaks, as we know, and the continuing saga of James and Evelyn, and also Malcolm, and then Evelyn's husband. So Malcolm introduces himself to James, and he introduces himself as Evelyn's brother. And also he seems to be telling James about how there seems to be this element of domestic violence, or a very tumultuous relationship between Evelyn and her husband, while at the same time Evelyn and James seem to be getting somewhat closer, shall we say, in terms of intimacy. What will happen in this particular plot line between Evelyn and James? What does Malcolm have to do with this? What does Evelyn's husband have to do with this? What's going on? This seems to be a place of wealth and privilege, but there also seems to be some element of mystery and unease. And what will James do once the House of Cards falls? And when the House of Cards falls, what will the secrets that are underneath, what secrets will be revealed in the aftermath of the chaos? We shall have to wait and see, but there is a sort of ominous setting, which is made even more ominous with the darkness and the outside and the storm and the lightning. But again, we shall see what goes on with James. Again, the continuing saga of many characters, such as the continuing saga of James going forward. And we should also say, too, that speaking of Cooper, we have to remember that we still have the disappearance of Major Briggs. We're not sure what happened, but Cooper and Sheriff Truman get a visit from Colonel Riley, a work colleague of Major Briggs. And Colonel Riley, while showing or saying that some things are confidential, he can't reveal a lot, there is still some things that he can reveal about, for instance, maybe some information that pertains to the images or the messages relating to outer space that were relayed by Briggs to Cooper in an earlier episode. The owls are not what they seem, and Cooper, 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 as we remember. And also references to, once in the White Lodge. What Colonel Riley can say and reveal to the two of them and to us as viewers is that those messages did not emanate from outer space, but rather they came from somewhere in the woods. So the source of the message has been clarified here, which is, again, very intriguing. So if the source of the message is not outer space, but in fact in the woods, what does that mean in terms of where these messages came from? Again, the mystery deepens. And also Colonel Riley mentions the very significant position of Major Briggs and how his disappearance is a really, really big deal. I mean, it has great potential ramifications for national security. Even the stakes are heightened, even more so than perhaps the stakes that were represented by the Cold War. So Major Briggs' disappearance has some kind of real significant or potential significant impact. So and he also mentions that Major Briggs was the best pilot that he knew. It's very interesting too about the pilot, because as we know, at the very end of the episode, Briggs returns, and he returns in the household, and we see him in a dress, or he's wearing what looks to be pilot uniform of some sort. So that's a very interesting detail. As Betty Briggs, his wife, and Bobby's mother, and Bobby's there, he embraces Betty and asks Bobby for a drink, of course. It's a really fascinating dynamic, because again, the Briggs household, we see the family dynamic. Remember earlier, in an earlier episode, there was some tension between and among the family, and you had Dr. Jacoby having a family session and then an individual session with Bobby. And of course, a little bit later, in a later episode, there was that great dialogue between father and son at the diner, where Major Briggs talks about not a dream but a vision of White Marble Place, and he was there, and he also saw Bobby there in the future, and he had a sense of calm and confidence that everything was okay for Bobby's future. This is something that Bobby then relates to his mother, Betty Briggs, played by Charlotte Stewart here, in the living room of their household, and Bobby Briggs, interestingly enough, refers to it as a dream, not a visions. But again, We should always keep in mind what is considered a dream and what is considered a vision. But in any event, it's really lovely that Bobby relates the story to his mother in this way, because it shows that he found this moment to be really important, and he expresses it too, also in a way perhaps to try to comfort his mother. Bobby isn't always he doesn't always have the smoothest way when it comes to his interactions with the adults of Twin Peaks, but when he has these moments of sensitivity, such as when he's with Shelley, or when he's right now with his mother, who's obviously very worried and upset about what's going on here, and the missing and Major Briggs who's missing. He relays the story, and I also interpret this as to be a really lovely act of tenderness on the part of the son to his mother. I also love the detail that Betty Briggs says about how Garland Briggs would run his fingers through her hair. She would pretend to be asleep, but she'd always know that he would do that. I love that detail. Again, those details, those intimate moments between couples. That's another lovely touch that we see throughout Twin Peaks. I love those details. There was something very similar that Sarah Palmer said about Leland Palmer after Leland Palmer had died, about how Leland Palmer would always be able to find that missing earring. So those little details between couples, as they're emphasized, again, they seemingly are minor details, but they're a really big deal in terms of a further establishment of the love and bond between people and the characters that we see throughout this world of Twin Peaks. So I love that detail that Betty Briggs brings up here. And also we have this sense of the importance of Major Briggs. I mean, he is a philosopher, he's a thinker, and there's a lot that he's thinking about apparently. So again, the saga of Major Briggs to be continued, because he does return at the very end here, but he then suggests that things are not okay. And we have the closing image of the stormy skies and the dark clouds, etc. So there seems to be something in the air. Something's not quite right. Something's rotten in the state of Denmark. Incidentally, speaking of Shakespeare, there is more reference to Shakespeare here. We had in an earlier episode, I think it was Ben Horn quoting from Richard III, and here we have, I think, reference to Romeo and Juliet. At least I think so. With regard to Lana, again, now the continuing saga of Lana, right? Who is the bride of Dougie Milford, but of course Dougie, we find, has died in the bed at the Great Northern. Apparently it was during the honeymoon, and he apparently died of a heart attack, something to do with sex, or maybe some kind of sex game. We're not quite sure, although we can assume and guess what might have happened. Lana is now revealed, or she's understood to be a woman who has this very powerful effect over many men here in Twin Peaks, such as Hawk, such as Andy, such as even perhaps even Dwayne Milford, and such as, well, actually, I take that back. Dwayne Milford, during this episode, he seems to be very much right. He's very antagonistic against Lana, wanting to press charges even though there's no crime, as Sheriff Truman says, and then he'll bring a civil suit, etc. She killed his brother with sex. That's what he claims, although Doc Hayward says no, it was a heart attack. So I'm sorry, yes. So Dwayne is very, very upset. Now, this is very interesting too, because as we remember, there was the relationship, the tension between brothers, Dwayne and Dougie, but now Dougie is dead. Dwayne shows his love for his brother. So this is also a very lovely touch too. The relationship between brothers. Let's see how this plays itself out. We do see another brother-to-brother relationship that's very key, that between Ben and Jerry Horn. Let's see what other relationships that spring forth in terms of brothers going forward, either in past or present or future. But here we have Dougie and Dwayne, the brother relationship that Dwayne now cherishes, unfortunately, though, after the passing, the death of his brother Dougie. But so Dwayne is still very antagonistic, but we have other people, other figures who are seemingly very captivated by Lana. including, for instance, Dick Tremaine and others. And so there's a scene where Lucy is trying to call Sheriff Truman, no answer. She realizes that all the men in the station are in the room, captivated by Lana's talk, drinking milk, etc. And Lucy's very upset about this. But oh well. So Lana having this great effect on the people around her. What will the continuing saga of Lana be? To be continued, of course, to be continued. Now, I mentioned Dick Tremaine, and there's also the story of Dick Tremaine and Little Nicky. There's, of course, the little bit of information from Judy Swain about some of the background of Nicky and the orphanage and some kind of mysterious circumstance, although the details are not revealed by her at that time. But there's a scene later involving the car and the changing of the tire, or the attempt to change the tire with the picnic blanket and everything, and the outdoor excursion. Nicky's there, and then suddenly Dick Tremaine is very nearly injured, perhaps even nearly fatally injured. And so this begins or this is a kind of furtherance of the suspicion that Dick Tremaine has that maybe little Nicky is a devil or demon. And there's that little moment where, when he's relaying this, Andy there then has a little thought bubble of fiery devil Nicky, and the fire again, another image of fire in Twin Peaks. Very interesting at that. So, what is going to happen with little Nicky and Dick Tremaine and Andy and then Lucy? To be continued, right? To be continued. It's also to be continued. We have to remember too that Catherine is back, and reestablished in the world of Twin Peaks, and she and Pete seem to be together again. Drinking champagne, expressing love for each other, poetry. At least Pete is reciting poetry to Catherine, at least poetry, or the attempt to recite a limerick before she stops him. And then we see Josie, who is now in the servant mode. She is now a maid for Catherine. And so this is a further assertion of Catherine's authority and power over Josie as a type of revenge. And this is something that we recall from the past episode about Andrew Packard, but we shall see how this develops over time, of course, going forward. And I think, yes, we have, I think that's that. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other element that I nearly forgot to mention, that of the continuing saga. And there's a lot of continuing sagas here. We have to go back to Dale Cooper and the chess moves and Windham Earl. And it seems that Dale Cooper tried to engage in the chess move, but that Windham Earl anticipated his move. And so this is a suggestion that maybe Windham Earl is a very intelligent person, a very dangerous person. Perhaps he is more intelligent than Dale Cooper is. If that's the case, we are being set up for a very major antagonist, possibly, potentially, who knows, in the sense of Windham Earl. All we do know, or all we can say with regard to episode 19, is definitely that Windham Earl has, for all the moments that we have seen or heard of him, the legend and the danger is really being built up. So Windham Earl, the continuing saga of Dale Cooper and Windham Earl, and what happened to Dale Cooper in the past. There's a little reference there about something that maybe Dale Cooper himself acknowledges as a type of weakness or a fault in his character. And we have to remember all the details revealed about material witness who died, Pittsburgh, Windham Earl, who had been his partner but then went insane. And now this same Windham Earl, we understand, is now somehow or another trying to get back at Cooper with this concept of the chess game. So let's see how this also plays itself out over the course of the subsequent episodes. But I think, yes, we have many things going on in this episode 19, and we have many more episodes to go. So, my dear friends, this has been episode 19, and thank you very much for stopping by. We'll see you at the next one. But until then, my dear friends, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies and TV shows like Twin Peaks. And I hope you enjoy those very generous helpings of cherry pie. All right, my dear friends, thank you and cheers.